Everyone see the screen okay? All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on how to attract high-value clients in 90 days without high-pressure sales tactics. For those of you who don't know us, that's Barbara Sorter on the right of the picture, my wonderful wife and business partner, and I think she's waving if you can see her.
But nobody can see me, or maybe they can.
Maybe they can on the gallery.
Yeah.
So we'd like to welcome you all, and as we have a lot of you on the call, I have put everyone on mute, so just to avoid background noise. But we do encourage interaction. There is a chat box. There is a chat button down the bottom of your screen, so please do use it. If you have a question, put a big Q colon and ask the question, and we'll do our best to answer it. All right, so let me move this here. So over the next 60 minutes, we're going to explore how to leverage your time and effort to get clients and how to establish yourself as a leading authority. And if you are taking notes, I suggest you write down what you can implement rather than the notes themselves, as in, don't write down the slides, because I will provide a replay. So, actually think about what you could do with the information rather than just writing the information down, okay? So who is this for? If you're here, I'm going to assume that you are very good at what you do and that you sell higher value non-commodity products and services. So you may be a professional services consultant or a firm involved in financial services such as financial planning, stockbroking or insurance, accounting, engineering, IT services, even leadership coaches and executive coaches. Those are some of the types of clients that we deal with. The common denominator is you sell complex, often intangible, higher cost solutions, which are often difficult to explain the value in terms where your clients go. I get that, I understand the value, and I'm willing to pay for solutions. So let me give you a very brief bio for those of you who don't know us. Over the last 20 years, Barbara and I have coached and mentored aspirational business owners in over 50 different industries. And having worked with solo consultants, small businesses to major multinationals, that allows us to bring a breadth of experience to the table. We know what works and can rapidly home in on where organizations need to improve their marketing and sales systems. All of which helps our clients achieve their goals, be it making more money, having more time, achieving a level of lifestyle, and in certain cases, giving back to the community. So I'm going to assume that you all have a lot of expertise and experience in your area, but you're not growing at the rate you'd like because you're not generating enough quality business. Would that be fair? You can just say, put a yes in the chat, that'd be great. Now, it could be because you're ineffective at lead generation and you have an ineffective sales process. Because in our observation over the years, people get into business because they're very good at what they do, but hardly anybody ever talks about how to actually generate a steady stream of good quality clients. And because of that, we see, businesses go through this inconsistent cash flow, which causes a feast and famine. Sometimes you're really busy and then there's a lull and then you're scrambling for the next big job, and this sort of thing, this cycle just keeps continuing. And you're constantly chasing your tail looking for new business, which makes you vulnerable. I think what we're going through with COVID is a classic example. There are a lot of businesses that are suffering because they don't have a full pipeline of clients. And so what we know people want to instead, because we all want this, is a consistent flow of new ideal clients, giving you that steady cash flow and increasing your profitability, which ultimately gives you control of your own destiny. And the ultimate aim in any business is to make money so that you have more time, so that you can then invest it and then create a lifestyle or give back to the community, whatever the objectives are that you want. Does that make sense? Just give me a yes in the chat, put a thumbs up. Good. All right, so let's look at a bit of reality. Everyone has competition. I don't care who you are, everyone has competition, because if you didn't have competition, the chances are nobody would actually want your product or service. And you'd be basically shouting into a void. So the question is, why would I, as a prospect, choose you? How do you differentiate yourself? how will your potential clients recognize your expertise and your uniqueness? Because unless you make yourself distinct, you will be perceived as a commodity, and that's when you start competing on price. And I have people saying, "Oh, my clients buy on price alone," and I keep getting beaten down. And I'm going, "Well, you have not made yourself a non-commodity. You have not positioned yourself correctly in the market." So when we work with our clients, we say, the job is to separate yourself from your competition and make yourself distinct and stand out, so that prospects can never compare you to the competition in an apples to apples comparison. So there's always got to be something different about you. And the best way to do this is to become a specialist in your particular market niche, where you deeply understand your client's needs and have tailored solutions. And one of the biggest mistakes we see people make in this sort of area is they say, well, I say, who's your potential market? And they say everyone. And I say, if it's everyone, it's effectively no one, because you can't be a jack of all trades, because you end up being a master of none. So if we look at an example, this is an example of one of our clients who is a financial planner. He's been a financial planner for well over 35 years. And when he started working with us, we said, okay, so what area are you really an expert in? And it turned out that he had a great deal of expertise in aged care. He had lots of contacts. He knew a lot about the very specialist aged care niche, where people were moving, older people were moving into that aged care realm, which is actually quite a nightmare. It's quite a minefield. And so what happened was we interviewed a lot of his clients and other aged care professionals who all validated his experience. And therefore we niched him down into an expert in this area. It's not to say that he doesn't do other financial planning, but we made him a specialist, or positioned him as a specialist in this area. And it, of course, had another benefit. It's a growing market. As we know, Australia's got an aging population. It is a growing market. It is a complex area. And by positioning him as a specialist, he now does co-ventures with people like Uniting Care and Probus, who bring him clients in that particular field. So I encourage every one of our clients to narrow down what it is they do, for whom they do it. And I know there's often when we do this, people say, oh, but it's removing my options. And I say, look, it's not really removing your options. What happens is you will still get business from outside, but by doing this, you become the specialist. It's like going to a specialist surgeon rather than going to your GP. The person does a very specific job for you, and he's known, or she is known, for doing that particular job. Now let's look at leverage and positioning. Every business has to market itself in some form, because if you don't market yourself, no one would ever know that you even exist. Now, whether that's marketing in the form of networking or advertising, in some form you need to get out there. So if we look at the column on the left-hand side, we go from marketing all the way to positioning. The right-hand side column is what we'd call a leverage factor, okay? So if you look at the right-hand column, a business that effectively markets itself is going to be twice as effective as a business that does nothing. But marketing in our world is generally passive. You're putting out a message into the marketplace and you're hoping that somebody's going to twig. Somebody's going to pick up the phone. Somebody's going to come into your store. Somebody's going to say, hey, listen, I want to work with you. But that's a passive activity. Prospecting, on the other hand, is an active activity. So prospecting says, okay, there's a great market out there that actually doesn't know that you even exist. But if you know who you're looking for and you can go out and target them, you will get a leverage factor of, say, 3 times over somebody who doesn't do any marketing at all. But prospecting without sales is where the rubber actually hits the road. And sales is where you actively probe deeply into a prospect's issue, showing them there's a solution and asking for the order. And we're going to get into this a lot more a bit later on. The next stage and the next rung on the ladder is relationships. So once you've got a client, you would be amazed at how many people we have dealt with over the years. And we've said, okay, you've got the client. What are you actually doing to increase the relationship that you get more dollar spend out of this client? And most people actually do nothing. So when we look at what it costs to get a client and what it costs to keep selling to that client for the lifetime of that client, it's 7 to 10 times more expensive to get a client in the door than to keep selling to them, because you've already formed a relationship with the client. And especially if it's a larger client where they have different segments of their business that you may have solutions that you could fit in there, rather than going out and looking for somebody else cold. Develop the relationships within that client, which gives you a great deal of leverage. But those are all push mechanisms. You're all going out there and you're going push, 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 push. I'm trying to get the word out. But when we go above that line, we get into pull marketing, okay, which is referrals. So somebody calls you up and says, or let's say, how do most referrals work? Most referrals work, somebody will say, oh, look, I've given your name to Fred. Fred will call you. Well, I can tell you, Fred will probably never call you. Okay, 9 times out of 10, Fred will not call. Or even if you call Fred, it's still a cold call. But if we get into the realm of recommendations, where you say to Bob, hey, Bob, I think you need to call Fred. And, oh, by the way, I have called Fred and said, I'm going to introduce you because you need to talk to Bob. That is a recommendation which is far more powerful, because you've taken an active role in this versus just a passive referral where somebody hands you a slip of paper, which is the traditional form of, if anyone's ever been in BNI, you'll get a slip of paper which says, okay, I've given your name to so-and-so. But the most powerful position to be in is to position yourself as the expert authority, the thought leader in the space. Because if you're a thought leader and recognized as an expert, you are effectively sitting there as the guru on top of the mountain, and people come to you. And your referrers can confidently say, hey, listen, this person is the best and you need to speak to them now, and I'm going to make the recommendation. I'm going to actually make the phone call, and I'm actually going to make the introduction. Now, also realize that who calls whom is really, really important. If you reach out to somebody cold versus somebody calling you, the somebody calling you is twice as likely to buy than you reaching out to somebody cold, because you've already been positioned, they already know something about you, they've already done their research, they probably already decided that they want to do business with you. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and give you a couple of examples a bit later. So your positioning, if you do it right, does a lot of the heavy lifting. And it'll make you 10 times more effective than somebody who does absolutely no positioning. Now, realize that it takes time and it takes effort to position yourself. This is not an instant fix, but you have to strive towards this, because this is where, what I would call the holy grail of marketing, because this is where people come to you rather than you going to them. Does that make sense? You can put a yes in the chat. If you've got any questions, just speak now. So this is the client acquisition cycle, if you like. So if you look, positioning is sitting there in the middle. And this is the cycle that every business needs to go through, starting with marketing to prospecting to selling to getting the client to forming the relationships to getting referrals, getting recommendations, and then going back to marketing, because you can never stop marketing. This is the thing that I see. And I had this conversation with one of our clients recently, and they are extremely successful financial planning company in Australia, and they said, oh, look, we've got enough clients and we don't need any more clients. And I said, this is a very dangerous place to be, because, let's face it, people die, people go away for whatever reason. And they came to that realization and realized that they could never stop marketing. They could never stop getting those recommendations and those referrals, because no matter how good you are either growing or dying in business. And you've got to consistently market yourself, and you've got to consistently bring in new clients to keep growing. Even to just stay in the position you're in, you've still got to bring people in. So if we look at the system that we teach, people. This is what we call the MPS acquisition system, which stands for marketing, prospecting, and selling. And the biggest mistake that we see in businesses is that they tend to focus, a lot of businesses tend to focus on marketing, or some businesses try to just focus on sales. Very few actually go out and actively prospect. And what we realized is that to consistently generate new leads, you have to undertake all three of those activities. And while a lot of people would consider them to be distinct activities, they're actually like tumblers on a safe. So each one of these things supports the one to, the one or the other, the Venn diagram. So marketing basically supports prospecting, basically supports sales, okay? And you have to have the right combination to open the safe door. So if we start with marketing, think of marketing as any activity that raises awareness and it educates your prospects and encourages them to come into your orbit. And its primary job is to educate your market and encourage people to reach out to you. Prospecting involves identifying potential clients, proactively reaching out and finding out if they have issues you can solve and their level of interest. And then sales is homing in on what your prospects want to achieve, highlighting what's stopping them and showing them you have a solution. And done well, you never have to use pushy sales tactics because your marketing and positioning has done the heavy lifting by educating your market, educating your prospects as to why they should be coming to you. So the sales aspect is more about finding out whether they've got those specific problems and figuring out whether they like you, trust you, whether you like and trust them, and whether you're going to do a deal together. But the real leverage comes from all three of those. If you do all three of those correctly, that's where you're going to multiply your results. So let's look at the demand triangle. This is one of the fundamental models that we teach our clients. And it's a demand triangle around marketing and how you go to your market. So if we look at start with the left-hand side over here, this bit over here, what do you do? So we all buy things because we have a problem that we want to solve, or we want an outcome that we don't have yet. And so most businesses, when we deal with them, when we start working with them, don't actually have a clear, concise message, and they can't identify a market segment who will resonate with what they have to offer. And many of them have no idea of what it costs to get a client in the door, and what do they need to spend on marketing, and what the ROI is going to be. You'd be surprised at how many people cannot tell me what the return on investment of any marketing or sales activity is, or what it costs to get a client in the door, and how profitable this client is in the long term. So let's just look at each one of these in turn. So we look at the left-hand side over here. You need to look at this through your client size. This is not about you. This is always about them. And you need to figure out what it is that they want, what problems they have, what outcomes they want. And you have to have a deep compassion and understanding of their problems and their outcomes. And if there was only one thing that you could really do for them, what would it be? Just even if you just narrowed it down to one thing, okay? And then you need to think about what is the actual value that you provide. What is the outcome and what is the value you provide? And when we talk value, we think in terms of left brain and right brain outcomes. So left brain are tangible outcomes. For instance, you might say, we're looking for a new car. So if somebody said to us, we could get you the new car at, save you $5,000 on the list price, that is a tangible outcome. The intangible outcome is, how would I feel? I would feel actually pretty good if I saved the money. That is an intangible outcome. So what is the emotional payoff of somebody working with you? What is the tangible payoff of somebody working with you? So if, for instance, you could if you could reduce the churn in a company by a certain percentage within a certain period of time, that is a tangible outcome. So if less people leave your organization because you have better systems, that is a tangible outcome. An intangible outcome is how will the hiring manager feel having a better team? What is that going to do for his or her status in the organization? Will that affect their performance? That is an intangible outcome. And you need to validate this by asking your clients, which is something I'll talk about a bit later, because it's one thing for you to think this, but you have to validate. You have to actually sit down with your clients and say, okay, what are the problems I'm solving? What are the things that you're really getting from us? Because it's not about you, it's about them. So if we move on this side, who is the market? And this is where we always talk about narrowing down the market, inch wide, mile deep. And this is something that we really struggled with over years because, you know, we've dealt with over 50 different industries, but we've over the years narrowed it down to say that our target market is essentially someone selling some form of professional service, but it is more important that we look at the psychographic. So a demographic in this case could be age, gender, income, location, company size, the industry, the revenue that the company makes. But the psychographic is how they think. What are their values and beliefs? Do I like you? Do I feel I can trust you? Do I feel like, what are your values and beliefs, and do they align with the values and beliefs that we espouse? So I'll give you an example. So one of our clients is a stockbroker. The demographic for him is someone who has a minimum of $250,000 to invest, preferably $500,000 and more to invest. But the psychographic, which is even more important, is somebody who is willing to take advice and not go, oh, well, yes, but, I don't think this is a good idea. When somebody is working with him, we want to say to them, okay, don't get a dog and bark yourself. Okay, if you are getting help from a professional, then take the advice. And that is the psychographic. We're looking for people who will actually take advice. Does that make sense? Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, I see a couple of thumbs up. All right, so down the bottom here is, down the bottom here is traffic, how you make money and the conversion. So the traffic is, can you get your message in front of them? Can you figure out where they are, what media you are going to need to reach them? Because you would not believe how many people say, well, my target market is X. And I go, okay, that's fantastic. How are you going to get your message in front of them? Where are they? What is the cost of getting your message in front of them? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they doing Google searches? Are they in industry magazines? How are you going to find these people? You've told me who you want to work for, but how are you going to actually find them? And what is the economics behind this? So how many people, once you've found them, how many of these people are going to be prospects? What is your conversion rate going to be? Because if you spend $10,000 on an ad, and I know people who do, and you get one client worth $1,000, that is not actually a very good piece of economics. But if you know that for every person you meet, you convert, say, 25% of them, and the lifetime value of a client is, say, $5,000, then conceivably you can spend a few $100s to get each one of those clients in. But you need to know what those economics are. And you'd be amazed at how many times I speak to people and they have absolutely no idea of what the lifetime value of a client is. And the lifetime value of a client is, put simply, is how many times they buy from you and what they spend over their lifetime with you. So if you know that somebody spent, for argument's sake, would spend $20,000 with you over their lifetime, say it's even over a year, conceivably, you could spend $20,000 getting them in and breaking even. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that. However, you could certainly spend $500 or $1,000 to get them in, because you know that if you convert 1 in 4, that's, say, $1,000 to get them in, that's $5,000, you're still making $20,000. So you're still making money on the back end. So you really need to know what your economics are. Let's move on to one of the most powerful concepts that we teach our clients. It's the format system. Anybody familiar with the format system? Just put a yes, no in the chat box. So a format system is a system of adult learning theory, which is codified by Bernice McCarthy in the 1960s. And it's the basis of how we all learn and process information. It doesn't matter who we are, we all learn and process information in this particular way. And because of that, we use it in all our communication, both verbal as well as written. And it ensures that we speak and write in terms that the audience will relate to. So you notice that we've got 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4, in that particular order. And they're in a particular order for a particular reason. So let me ask this question. How many of you on the call need to know why you should listen to something? Why, what is all this thing about? Why should I even bother giving you the time of day? Just put a yes into the chat box if you fall into that category. So you're not interested in the information, you're not interested in anything else, but you need to get why should I even give you the time of day? Anybody in there? Put a yes in the chat box. What? Nobody?
No, one.
One.
Charles.
Charles. Thanks, Charles. Okay. Then we move on to the I want them all. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Yvonne. Okay. So we move on to the what? The information base. So the information base, the people like, predominantly scientists, engineers, people who are interested in information. Okay. So give me all the information. I don't really care why I should be interested in this. I'm an information sponge. I just like knowledge. Anybody like that? Predominantly. I'm not saying that you're not any of the other ones, but predominantly that. This is a preference. Then we move into the how. So the how are the people, the kids in chemistry class who go, oh, let me put these 2 chemicals together to see what happens. They're the ones who take the lawnmower apart to see how it works. They're not interested in the concepts behind the information. They're not interested in the theory. They're just interested in the practical applications. Give me the stuff. Let me see how it works. What else can I do with it? Okay. And then we have the what if people. The what if people are the classic entrepreneurs who go, you've given me something to think about. Now, what else can I do with it? What else? And they go off and they're the lateral thinkers of this world. Anybody there? You're there. Okay. So now I should point out that we all do all of these things. It is not that we do one to the exclusion of any of the others. However, what you will find is that somebody who's very strong in the why tends to be less interested in the how. So they go in diagonals. Somebody who's really interested in the what and the information tends to be less interested in the what if lateral outcomes and vice versa. Okay. But when you are dealing with somebody, you have absolutely no idea which quadrant they favor. So when we teach people to write, when we teach people to speak, we always start in this order. So why, what, how, and what if. Now, there is a caveat with all of this, all right? So in a sales situation, what do most salespeople do? They go, oh, let's talk about all of the wonderful features and benefits that I've got. Let's talk about, let's do a demo. Let's open the bonnet of the car, and I want to show you the engine, and I want to show you what the gearbox looks like. I mean, who cares, okay? So in a sales situation, you need to only be talking about the what, the why, and the what if. Why should they be interested? What are the problems that they're looking to solve? And what are the outcomes that they could be looking to get? At some stage, your prospect will want more information of what it is and how you do it, because this is where you actually do the demo. This is where you talk conceptually about what you're doing. This is the actual demo. But do not ever make the mistake of starting here or here without establishing the big why. As Simon Sinek, which basically, Simon Sinek, for those of you who, the power of why, well, guess where he got this from? He got this from Bernice McCarthy with the format system. So Simon Sinek would say, well, what is the why? And I would say, what is the outcome that they're looking for? What is the problem they want to solve? What is the outcome they want? And that's where you want to sit in a sales conversation. Does it make sense? So I'll give you a quick example of a client of ours who actually used this format system. So he said to me that it took him 8 days under normal circumstances to put a presentation, a 60-slide presentation together for a keynote. using this particular system, he got it down to 1 day. Not only did he get it down to 1 day, but he was at a major industry conference where he became the highest rated speaker. And because of that conference, got in front of a leadership team of a major multinational that he'd been trying to get in front of. And using a system like this, it's allowed him to position himself. And he uses this system in every video he produces, every keynote he does, and all of the content creation. And we use the same system in every white paper that we write, whether it's for ourselves or clients, every article that we produce. So it's a fundamental to how you get a message across.
We also use it in our prospecting process as much as in the sales process.
And I'll get to that as well. Okay, let's talk about demand generation. Most people target the top little green triangle at the top, people who are ready to purchase. Okay, so there are effectively two types of people in the world. Dare I say it? Okay, the people who are ready to buy something when they're ready to buy it, and the people, everyone else. Okay, and you got to realize that people will buy when they're ready to buy, not when you need to make a sale. So the people at the top over here are the people who already know that they have a problem. They are the people doing the Google search, looking for a specific solution and actively looking, and then they come and find you. Okay? I was on a call this morning, and I said, well, here is the interesting analogy between Google and Facebook under normal circumstances. So when you go to Google and you search for something, if you're looking for a plumber, you go and search for a plumber, and results come up. Versus if you're sitting on Facebook, it's, in fact, Google, if you're on Google and you're looking for a plumber, it's akin to looking in the yellow pages for those of us who still have the yellow pages, okay? So you would open up the yellow pages, you would look for plumber, it's the same thing on Google. But if you're flicking through a magazine and you come across something that you go, oh, that's really interesting, I never even thought of that, I didn't even know about that, that is effectively how Facebook operates. So one is targeting somebody who is directly looking for something, which is that top triangle. And then there's everybody else who may be interested in what you have to do, but they have no idea that you exist, and they have no idea that this thing is even a problem, or that they could be looking for a solution. But as you can see, that's a far bigger segment of the market than the top triangle over here. So when we deal with people, we say, okay, the marketing, which is effectively passive and waiting for people, is really targeting this top little bit of the green up here, maybe 3 to 5% of your market, okay? What about all of these other people who could be interested, but they don't actually even know that you exist, which is where prospecting comes in. So prospecting is active, and it targets those people who don't know you exist and could be in your market. And it involves reaching out, and I know that might put the fear of God in most people, reaching out cold to people to start a conversation with someone to determine if they could be a fit. You don't know if they're going to be a good fit. You are effectively reaching out to them in some form. But by reaching out to them, you have far more reach over here if you do it correctly, the way we show you how to do it. And it puts you in control of the sales pipeline, because you're no longer just waiting for people to turn up. You're actually reaching out and say, hey, listen, I may have, when I work with people like you, I know that they face certain types of issues. Do any of these remotely trigger with you? And if they say yes, then you can start a conversation with them. Now, having said that, your marketing supports your prospecting activities, because if done right, for instance, when we're all over LinkedIn, we're all over Facebook, people know us, they see us. So if I do make a phone call, it's never a cold call. People have seen us in some form, and they know 9 times out of 10, they know who we are, and they're willing to have a conversation. So if we look at how you raise awareness, most of you would be on our list in some form. Some of you I don't know, but if you are on our list, you would certainly know that we have been publishing a regular newsletter, I think, for the last 15 years straight. And recently, it used to go out once a week. Now it goes out twice a week. We've added videos to the mix, and all of that goes on LinkedIn and Facebook. And we have extensive free material which showcases our expertise. This piece of material, this free report over here, how to attract high value clients, we've been giving away a form of that for a number of years. And we know that if somebody downloads this and they get followed up, because everybody will get followed up, and they then turn up here and they have, in very often they've printed out the 50 something pages, they've highlighted it, they put little sticky notes, they've already decided to become a client. The number of times people have said, oh, look, we've already decided, we're just here to, to see what see what you do, just put a, meet you in the flesh. Not that we do that anymore with COVID. And because of the positioning that this sort of material has given us. So I really encourage everybody here to publish. Yes, I would like some water. Thank you.
I'll get some water for you.
Thank you, I forgot. So when it comes to prospecting, all of that is still, the marketing side is all passive, the prospecting is active, and it's essential that you pick up the phone. And I know people have a fear of picking up the phone, but if you reach out to somebody beforehand with a LinkedIn message or even an email message done correctly, thank you. SMS, even snail mail. Snail mail can be incredibly effective if you've got a high value prospect. One of the best examples that I saw years ago was a fellow coach who had bought this really nice paperweight. It was about the size of your fist, and it was a jeweled elephant. It looked like something that came out of India, and really quite heavy. And he put this in a box, and he had a covering letter that said something along the lines of, I'd like to talk about the elephant in the room. I guarantee if somebody gets something like this in the mail, number one, you're going to open it. Number two, you're going to keep this thing. You're not going to throw it away. And he was getting about 75% response rate for people that would actually have a meeting with him. In our case, we actually have a little gold USB bar. I can't reach it at the moment, but it's down there. It's a little gold USB bar. It looks like a gold ingot that we used to send people. A little bit harder in times of COVID because you don't know what they're working from home. But there are always ways around this if you want to get in front of somebody. You notice I've got fax over here. Believe it or not, fax still works depending on your marketplace. If you were dealing with pharmacists, they still use fax. Lots of doctors still use fax. And the interesting thing with fax is that sometimes the fax doesn't appear as a physical paper. It just appears as an email, but you don't know who it's from, so you're going to open it and you're going to read it. SMS can work really well, especially if you're dealing with a trade audience who all sit on their phones. But even if you're just dealing with any form of consultant, any company, when you've got a mobile number, an SMS can work really well. So let's look at how often you should contact somebody and follow up. This is a chart from Microsoft. Now, you'll notice that most people give up far, far, far too early. Most people give up after the first call or the second call or the first non-response or somebody's not ready. But I can tell you that the most business comes 10, 15, 20 times further, calls down the track. So if you think of the iceberg, you're really only targeting this top 3% on the first time you make a call. You don't know whether something is going to change, something is going to happen further down the track unless you keep in touch with people. The longest somebody has been on our list to date has been 10 years before becoming a client. So they came to one of our, somehow they got on our list. They came to one of our sessions 10 years before that. 10 years later, they phoned up and said, oh, look, we'd like to work with you. Now, obviously, it doesn't always take 10 years. Sometimes it can be a week. Sometimes it can be a couple of days. But the point is, if you give up too soon, you will miss out on the majority of your clients. And the other thing that people ask me is, okay, how often should you keep in contact? We say it has to be at a minimum once every 90 days. So why 90 days? So there's a lady called Wendy Evans who used to work for Thomas Cook, Intercontinental Hotel, Saki and Saki, and she found no matter which industry that she worked in, people forgot you in 90 days. Day 91 came along, and someone would go, another supplier would come in and say, oh, look, we could do something for you. And your client would go with them. It was as if some sort of switch had turned on day 91. Now, we send something out twice a week. I'm not suggesting that everyone is going to do that, but at least once a month, you need to be sending something out to your network to say, hey, I exist. Whether they read it or not doesn't matter. The fact is, and I can tell you, a lot of people say to me, oh, I don't read all your stuff. I read maybe 1 in 4, maybe 1 in 5, but I know you're alive. I know you're there. And when I need something, I'll contact you. And that's exactly what happens. Okay. So here's another example of just sending out stuff. So a number of years ago, I had a phone call at Christmas, and just before Christmas, and the guy rings me up and he says, oh, Rashid, I have to apologize. And I'm going, oh, really? What do you have to apologize for? I don't even know who you are. And he said, I've been on your newsletter list for 2 years, and I kept getting delete. Okay. And then I saw this particular one, and it piqued my interest. And we need help with our sales team. Can you come and help us? So I said, sure. So we organized a day's consulting. We went and helped the sales team, and then basically said, that's great, fantastic, carry on. A couple of months went by, and Barbara said to me, have you actually followed him up to see how he's going? I said, oh, look, we did the job. He was happy, etc. And Barbara kept insisting, and she said, listen, we're going down to Canberra. We were going to go past his place down in Campbelltown. Why don't you ring him up and just drop in and see how he is? And I went, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know. But she insisted. And so we did. We went there. We found that they were going to be in a major manufacturing week trade show where they were spending something like $25,000 on a trade stand. This was big bickies, and they wanted a decent return. So we parlayed that first engagement by follow-up into a $100,000 engagement over the next year, just because we followed up and we figured out what it is that they wanted, and we showed them how they could get an outcome. And they became the second most profitable subsidiary behind Germany worldwide in that year with the work that we did for them. And the trade show resulted in them having the highest monthly revenue that they'd ever had in the history of the 10 years that they'd been in Australia. So if you're not following up with people, I would really suggest that that's the major thing that you do now. And if you need help with doing that, that's something that we can help you put together. So let's look at another example of a client. So this is a marketing structure and sales structure that we put from a client that goes in this particular way, okay? So John is a leadership coach who is passionate about improving student performance learning outcomes, and he deals with high school principals and leadership teams in Australian schools. And so when he came to us, he said, oh, look, I know what I'm doing from a technical point of view, as I'm a really good coach, but I don't know how to get clients in the door. So the first thing we do with any of our clients is we interview the client's client, to find out what they're looking for in a solution, why they engaged with these people. And then we do the interview. Then when we put them through a product and marketing alignment canvas, the methodology that we designed, which determines how each client values each particular job that's being done for them, and why, and we also look at the competition. And we look at where they could improve and what else that the clients might want. And so 2 things came out of this research, which are really interesting. The first one was that he was offering a 1-year program valued at $25,000 to each of these schools. And these principals are telling me that, hey, hang on, 1 year isn't enough. We actually need more time. And I said, well, how much time do you need? They said 3 years. And I said, are you willing to pay for that? And they said, yes. So we took his 1-year program and made it into a 3-year program and charged $75,000, which has another benefit because he only had to sell it once and get paid for 3 years. So remember the lifetime value? We've just increased that. And the other thing that we realized was that he, as part of this big enchilada program, that he had a student feedback module, which was at a much lower cost. So we extracted that out of the main program so that he could sell that by himself as a standalone for schools that didn't want the whole enchilada. And it also came in as a method of getting into a school. Then from all of this, we created a white paper collateral, which went through the whole format system of why a school should be interested, what he did, how he did it, what the results were. And then we coached him on how to actually get leads in the door. Now, he'd written a couple of books, so we convinced him. They were sitting in the garage, and so we convinced him to start using these books as positioning material. He was going to a conference for high school principals, so we bought a contact list of high schools, and we sent all of this material out. So we'd send out the book, we'd send out the white paper as physical copy. We'd then follow it up with phone calls, and we had a very sophisticated CRM system that we put together and basically followed it up with phone calls. The end result of all of this is he went to a particular marketing conference. Somebody walked up to him, a senior leader of a high school, and said, hey, listen, I've been getting all your stuff. I've read your case studies. I've spoken to other people that you've worked with. I want to sign up. Where do I sign? That is the power of positioning. So let's move on in the last few minutes that we've got. In sales, nothing happens until somebody buys something. Nothing happens until someone buys something, and the deal is done and the money is in the bank. And remember, people buy because they're in a present situation. They want to get to a future situation, but there are certain obstacles that are stopping them. And your solution is the bridge to those obstacles. But to do this, you really have to understand their present, what's stopping them, and what the future is that they want. So notice the format system again. The first step here is actually not in the why. The first step here is in the research that you do. The what. You need to have a real understanding of what your potential clients' issues are and approach them from a place of compassion and deep conviction that you can help them. What issues do you know that they're likely to be facing? And think in terms of pain and gain, because you know, we all move away from pain towards gain, and we're 4 times more likely to take action because we want to move away from something we don't like than to aspire to something that we do want. So you do need to know what the pain and the gain is. And then you need to know what are the things that they will openly speak about as their issues and what are the things that they won't speak about. For example, when we speak to clients, they will openly say, oh, look, we don't have enough leads, or we risk becoming a commodity or competing on price, and there's pressure to discount. But what won't they say until you get to know them a little bit better? What's under the surface? What haven't they openly voiced? Maybe something they're ashamed to admit. One example that we see quite often is, do I provide enough value? You know, am I a good business person? You'd be surprised at how many times that comes across. You know, am I actually doing things that, you know, providing value for what I'm getting paid? Am I charging a fair price? And they undercharge themselves. So what don't they speak about? Now you need to figure out what is it that they want instead. Now those would be the opposites of whatever the pain is, obviously. And think in terms of tangible and intangible benefits, which we talked about before. So the tangible outcomes are quantifiable. For example, you'll increase production efficiency by X in X. For example, one of our clients works in manufacturing with food manufacturing, and he says, I can take your manufacturing efficiency of your factory, which in Australia hovers around 30%, to world's best practice in Germany, which is around 85%. And I can do that within a year. That is quantifiable. Especially if you say, okay, if you do that, I'm going to save you money here because of less wastage. I'm going to make you more money here because of better production. That intangible is how someone is going to feel when they get the benefit. And everybody wants some combination of more money, more time, some form of status or recognition, and some form of lifestyle and happiness. And you've got to figure out what is going to drive this particular person. And you've got to know what your solution is. But once again, when you are talking to someone in a sales situation, you never go into these two areas. You stay in the pain and what they want instead. This is critical. Do not go and vomit all of your prospects and go, this is my wonderful solution. I'm going to give you this wonderful demo, and their eyes just glaze over because you haven't actually covered the pain as to why they should be interested and what is the outcome that they want instead. So this is an acrostic that we have created and we use with our clients. And you can use this in two ways. One is when you're actually going back here and looking at what are their issues, what's their pain, what they want instead, as well as when you're actually talking to a prospect. And so the acrostic, the D stands for details. What are the top issues that they're facing? What openly spoke about, not openly spoke about. The I is the interval. How long have they been experiencing these issues? The cost is what's it costing them to not fix it? Then we get into the obstacles, because if they could have fixed it, they would have. And is it really important to them to fix it? Because we all have problems, but that doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to spend money and time fixing them. So what have they done to try and fix it? What's stopping them from achieving what they want? What have they tried? Why have they not succeeded? And the action is actually inaction. What will happen if they don't fix it? And the T is to talk less. So talk about them, not you. In a sales conversation, there should always be an 80-20. 20% you, 80% them. Your job is to elicit stuff from them. Your job is not to be sitting there talking about yourself. And then the final E is getting them into their emotions. So we all buy on emotion and justify with logic. I don't care who you are, whether you are the CEO of a major multinational 500, top 100 ASX, or someone buying shampoo. We all buy on emotion and justify with logic. And the logic is, how do I justify this to myself, to my friends, my family, to my boss, whoever it is? And the emotional payoff is very often something like status, recognition. It's some sort of emotional benefit. So when I'm talking to somebody, I would say, okay, details, so tell me a little bit more about going on with whatever it is that the issue you're here that they've brought up, okay? And you want to drill down and you want to say, okay, tell me a little bit more, summarize it. The interval is, it's been going on for how long? Oh, that's interesting. And your goal, once again, is to keep drilling down into the pain. And you keep going down with those questions until you elicit enough pain and you elicit enough of the obstacles to get them into the future that they want to get to. So let's look at how you would actually structure a call. So when we're sitting in front of somebody, we have deep compassion. And this is a model that I learned from Matt Church in Thought Leaders. And I think it's a great way of actually structuring a call so that you keep on track. So you start with talking about the non-spoken that they, look, I know when I'm dealing with people in your type of situation, there are these sorts of issues, and then you might have 3 of those to 1 of the unspoken. You then show them a value model of how you are going to help them get from where they are to where they want to get to. And that could involve some more time, money, time, status, or lifestyle. You then present your solution, and then you ask them whether that is something that they are interested in doing. And this is where most people fall down. You'd be amazed at how many people will not ask for the order. So if you genuinely believe you can solve their issues and say, I can fix this, are you interested? And it'll cost you this. You are not doing yourself or them any favors. Because if you don't ask, you walk away and you feel that you haven't got the sale. They walk away thinking, damn, I knew there was something there that I wanted, but I haven't been able to get because nobody has actually asked me. And then once they commit, look, for a small sale up to $10,000, $15,000, it might be as simple as sign here, let's do the deal, get a deposit. For a sale which involves a number of people, it might just be a commitment to getting another meeting with a defined outcome. But we have a saying in our business that we learned from Don Fanden, who is another coach in our network: never leave a meeting without a meeting. So no matter what happens, always get a commitment to whatever the next step is. And a couple of mistakes that people make: they wing the structure. They wing it. They don't actually have a sales structure. Your job is to provide the structure of the call. Their job is to provide the content. And when we work with people, we really, really drill and skill this. Use the format, stick to the why and the what if, do not go into the how. And be clear at what level of the organization that you need to be targeting. If yours is a strategic solution, target the business. Do not target the IT department. The number of people we see coming in too low because of their own lack of self-esteem very often, or they feel that, you know, they've got a technical solution that, and therefore I'm going to target the technical side of the business. It surprises me. It never ceases to amaze me, in fact. Your job, if you've got a solution that is a business solution, is to target the business, target the people who want to make more money, who want to reduce risk. So we've got another 2 minutes left. So what's next? You can see there's as M. Scott Peck said, there's the road less traveled. In our world, you can carry on doing what you're doing and travel down the road you're already going, or you can take the road less traveled and learn how you can position yourself to become the guru at the top of the mountain. And so the way we put it is there are two parts. You can do it all yourself, and that's absolutely fine. And I hope that we've given you enough of a grounding to be able to at least take the concepts and move forward with them. However, for those of you who would like to accelerate your progress, we have a 90-day program which goes deeply into every one of those circles: the marketing, the prospecting, and the selling. So the marketing helps you position yourself, making the selling easier. The prospecting qualifies people in or out, making the sales job easier. And the whole point is to get more deals faster with clients that you really, really want to work with. Now, as I said, there's nothing for sale today. If you'd like to find out more about the program and how we can offer you, what we can help you do, we've decided to give you some of our time, and which will help you get clarity and a path forward to bringing in clients. And what we're going to do is we're offering 60 minutes to sit down with you and to go through these concepts and to define a clear strategy that will help you move forward so you're clear and confident about how you can do this. Now, at the end of that, whether you work with us or not, it actually doesn't matter, okay? We're offering the time free because we know that, number one, we like helping people, and we know that a certain percentage will work with us and a certain percentage won't. But by the same token, we're offering this thing as a way of accelerating everybody's progress. So if that is something that you're interested in, by all means, drop me a line. And I think I need to change that slide. You can either email me or just send me or call me on that number. And in any case, all of us, we will reach out to you anyway just to find out what you took away from this webinar. And that is it.